What did the weird kid in your school do that you'll never forget? This was at university, which makes this even weirder. I studied geology, so we went on a lot of field trips. One time we went to Spain and I noticed this rather strange girl had a tally chart in the back of her notebook. Now, this girl was odd. She wore all black clothes that were clearly not washed very well. She had bright ginger hair and would wear huge spiky plastic jewelry that was usually bright orange. Like big spiky plastic necklaces or bracelets. She would pick her nose aggressively in class, kind of girl. Anyway, I asked some of the other girls if they knew what the tally in her notebook was about, and they said that she was counting the amount of time she had successfully taken a piss while standing up. I don't know about you, but I found this fascinating. I started casually following her one day on our field trip in Spain, and sure enough, she would find somewhere she thought was discreet. It wasn't discreet, I saw everything. She would take her pants fully off, then take a mean piss standing up, the whole time with a demonic smile on her face. Crap was scary. Then she puts her pants back on, gets out her notebook to add another tally mark, then saunters off into the Spanish wilderness to do more geology. It was almost as disgusting as it was mesmerizing. So, one day we had a day off to relax and do what we wanted, so everyone agreed we would go to Madrid for the day, so we all get on a big coach and set off. The drive is like 2 hours. 30 minutes in, she starts mumbling to herself about needing the toilet, everyone around her going quiet as she becomes more agitated. Eventually she jumped up and waddled down the aisle to ask the driver to stop. After a bit of arguing and Spanish shouting from the driver, we pull over. The bus doors open, she walks back up the aisle and gets off using the door halfway down the bus. She takes 3 steps away from the door and starts digging a hole like an effing badger in heat. Now at this point I think deep down I knew what was about to happen. She's about to take a massive piss right here in front of everyone as the ultimate win/fu to her classmates she clearly hated, but boy I was wrong. She finished digging her hole. It was quite impressive given how dry the ground was. She turned herself away from the bus, dropped her trousers and took a squat over the hole. What is this? I thought. Maybe she's too shy for a stand-up piss. Nope. Out comes the most horrific crap from her pasty white butthole. Like gallons of it. I've never seen so much. The hole she dug, whilst impressive, was not sufficient for the brown mass that spewed forth. She finished, wiped her butt with a small piece of tissue she had in her pocket and got back on the bus, with the same maniacal grin I saw her have with a wild piss. Everyone was silent, our professors just staring at each other, clearly thinking what the F just happened. Jim. Did that girl seriously just unleash a turd tsunami in front of 40 people? The rest of the journey was just silence. I think we were all in shock. We get to Madrid and everyone slowly gets off the bus. A crap girl starts saying again that she needs the toilet and everyone turns to look at her. Her bright orange trousers are soaking wet, like she'd been swimming. One of the other students said, Jesus Christ, what the hell happened? And casually as anything, she turns to him and says the bus ride was too long. I pissed myself a few times, at this point I'm losing my mind. What the F, lady? You stopped the bus so you could decimate the landscape? You couldn't have pissed then? You might as well have. I mean, everyone saw your massive dump. I don't think a quick piss would have bothered anyone. Seriously. Anyway, 2 girls took pity and carted her off to a public toilet. The rest of us went to a few museums and had a great day, but it was hard to enjoy, to be quite honest. Madrid's Natural History Museum didn't have the same jovial atmosphere after watching a grown woman crap and piss herself. Bartenders, what is the most memorable interaction you had with a customer? He wasn't completely hammered, but I'll share my favorite interaction I've had with a bar guest that honestly was a huge eye-opener to how to live my own life instead. The restaurant/bar I work at is an odd concept. We have a lot of different things going on throughout the week, so some nights it goes from a nice place to grab food and drinks for dinner, to straight up dance club/high volume bar. I love it because it's just a glorious, well executed, and managed crap show, so walking in always keeps me on my toes. Anyways, getting off topic. We do trivia on Sunday and Monday nights, and our table taps, big tubes of beer that sit on the table or bar so everyone can pour their own beer, are half priced all night. So we were a fairly new establishment and we were still getting a lot of new people in to see what all the fuss was about. This guy comes in and he's probably late 40s, normal looking guy. My first thought was he looks like a friend of mine's dad. I'm fairly observant and noticed his hands look like those belonging to someone who was in construction, or some sort of manual labor type profession. Nothing wrong with physical labor. I've done the work myself. I just sort of scan people naturally and harmlessly in my head, put them into a certain stereotype and then try to see if it holds up. I love it when the negative stereotypes don't hold up. I had been trying to work on not being so judgy, which I could have been, like, this guy's probably gonna be a typical sort of construction guy, whatever. I told him about the special and that it actually comes out cheaper to buy the beer tower at half price than drink 3 of the large beers. He wasn't overly grumpy or snarky, just very short with his answers. Just seemed like he didn't want to talk much. If you want to listen, I'll talk, that's for sure. So I talked him into the tower. He watched whatever sports games were on the TVs, drank some beer, and ate some food. Eventually he loosens up and gets to talking about how he just moved back in the area in the last few months after living in New Orleans for 25 years. As we're talking about New Orleans, a classic rock song, might have been Led Zeppelin, they're one of my favorites, so we'll say Ramble On came on and I said, ooh. This is a great song. So we start talking about music and he mentions he lived right outside of some fairgrounds in New Orleans and his wife and daughter would walk down the street to concerts that would come through. Widespread Panic was one band he mentioned that stood out and sort of bonded us because I had just seen them at Hangout Fest in Gulf Shores not long before this night, and we both liked some of the same bands. Throughout our conversation he would sort of randomly mention, well yeah, my daughter's normally with me during this time, but she's in college now and down in Florida on spring break. Which I mistook for a dad missing his daughter, who is now growing up, and the beers sort of bring that emotional side out. Finishing our music conversation, he pays out after he's been at the bar for about 3 hours. Our convo was sort of off and on as I went back and forth to other guests. He gets up and asks which way to the restroom. As he comes back from the other room and by my bar, I'll never forget it as long as I live. I'm not just saying that, but the events of our seemingly normal encounter got burned in my brain. He stops and sort of lends up to the bar and looks me in the eye and says, hey man, I'm sorry if I was a butthole when I came in earlier. And I told him he didn't come across that way. Guess he realized how short and sort of unapproachable he was being at first, and the brewskis brought out that apology. And he said, well, thank you for still talking to me. It's been a rough day because this is the first year my daughter hasn't been with me today, and it's the 4-year anniversary of my wife of 30 years passing away, so thank you for not just dismissing me. He reached his hand out to shake mine, and told me to have a good night and walked out the door. I'm a fairly emotional guy, not in a dramatic way, or anything, just very empathetic, and I had recently lost my grandmother with whom I was very close. So I got teary-eyed, had someone watch my bar, and go outside to smoke a cigarette and settle down, and it's still an encounter I think of almost every day. Those minutes after that just thinking by myself were so profound. Why did you and your first significant other break up? Around 14 me and a few of the guys I went to school with started hanging around with these girls from another school on the other side of the city. We hung out a lot, all friends, then the other guys started dating some of the girls, and in an effort to not make me feel left out, I wasn't interested in dating at the time. I was quite happy playing football and chilling out, so they brought their other friend. We'll call her Maria. Anyway, Maria and I are talking. We have very little in common. I like sports and music. She likes to do very little and read. I should point out here, Maria was absolutely stunning. At the time a solid 10, whereas I sat somewhere around a 5 pushing a 6. All good. This goes on for a few weeks. I like her. She's funny, gorgeous, and I was quite happy, basically sitting looking at her. This all takes place during summer holidays. Anyway, school comes around. Me, one of my best friends are sat in our electronics class. We picked it for our GCSEs and we were starting our projects that week, and he says, I bet you 20 pounds and a packet of whatever it is you're smoking that you can't make you and Maria official. I took it as a joke and said, yeah, whatever man, you're on. So for the next few weeks we were getting on well. We started meeting up earlier than the others and going hanging out on our own. By this point she'd found out that I liked her. But guys being guys, my friends never mentioned if it was mutual. We had each other's phone numbers as well and would text all the time. This was back in 2004. We didn't have WhatsApp or iMessage, etc. We had 10p texts and a pay-as-you-go phone. Anyway, fast forward about 3 more weeks. We've sort of fallen into being a couple. We've not told anyone as we're kinda just confused about it as well. She asks if I think we're a couple. I said it's up to you. I'm happy either way. She says yeah, let's make it official. So back in those days, you had MSN Messenger and MySpace. So to make it official, it was a top friend on MySpace and a name drop in your MSN name. That happened. The friend that made the bet with me instantly messages me saying bullcrap. You've told her and she's going along with it. I asked what he was about. He says the bet we made. I said I thought that crap was a joke and men were just gonna see what happened. Anyway, the next time I see him he pays up even though I said I thought he was joking. A year or so later, me and my mates are stressed as all hell. GCSEs are getting us down. We're starting to worry about college, etc. So electronics class happens again. I'm nearly done with my project, a laser-tripped home security system made for under 20 pounds. He's finishing up his road safety thing. And knocked my project off the table while I was going picking some more parts out of my tray of components I'd ordered. I get back to the desk and my crap's in pieces on the floor. I go mental. It took Kyle about 6 months to design, sim, order parts and build to a point where it would work. I punched him for it. He knew how hard I'd worked on it. After at the time I thought this, well-deserved beating. He says he's going to tell Maria about the bet. He proceeds to do so. The next time I saw her, she gave me a slap, says so this year was nothing but a bet between you and your mates. You're a jerk. His girlfriend splits up with him because he split me and Maria up and she thought I was a nice guy and he'd messed my electronics course up entirely. Few months later me and Maria bump into each other out and about. I'm off to band practice. She's going to the library next to the practice rooms. After we'd done our respective activities for the day we met for a milkshake, had a chat and tried again. 5 months later we split again. For unrelated reasons, I just wasn't into it anymore. Fun times. What was the worst reason someone gave for breaking up with you? About 6 years ago, I lived in an extremely tiny town. Nobody locked their doors or cars, or anything of that sort. Everyone knew each other and it was a very tight-knit community. For reference, I am 25 years old, 6 feet 4 inches, 260 pounds, around 10% body fat. I have an IFBB Pro card in bodybuilding. This will come into play later in the story. So my wife and my dog are sleeping in our bedroom, which is on the opposite side of our apartment, with the door closed, so the dog doesn't rumble through the garbage at night while we sleep. It's raining outside and usually the apartment creaks and makes noises because it's very old, but I ignore it and go back to sleep as it happens every night. Now this night in particular I was hearing some extra noises. My dog, who usually ignores the sounds as well, was going absolutely bonkers in the room. He's not a barker, but he lets me know when he hears something by jumping on the bed and licking my face, also when he's scared. So to get back to the story, my dog is going nuts, my wife is sound asleep, and I am up watching Netflix at around 3 a.m. when I have work at 8 a.m. I keep hearing these faint noises, like a cabinet opening and closing, but like I said before, we are in a very small community and I think nothing of it. No way someone is actually in my apartment. So all of a sudden I take one earphone out, and I hear at the flicker of a light switch. It's an old house, so it has those loud light switch flicker when you turn something on and off. I imminently knew something was wrong, as this is not a sound I normally hear, and I get up and creak my door open just a little and see a light on in the near kitchen room. I know I shut all the lights before showering before bed, so I leap into action, wake up my wife and tell her to stay here with the dog and lock the door and to not come out unless I say everything is safe. I walk into the kitchen and there is a guy, probably late 30s, going through every drawer and cabinet I had. I said hey in a loud voice and scared the absolute crap out of the guy. I guess he thought no one was home, and he charged at me. So for reference, remember I said 6'4" 260ths of a pounds, and the guy charging at me, around 5 feet 10 inches / 160? So he charges at me and I shove him against my wall with my forearm against his neck, make a huge hole in the wall, and begin to headbutt the guy until he's nearly unconscious. I turned him around and proceeded to hold him in a chokehold headlock, and out of nowhere his wife, I later found out it was his wife, was also in my apartment and came charging at me. I put up my foot, exactly how you would imagine it in the WWE, and I punted that goober right in her gut, and she fell to the floor. So now, the guy is unconscious, the girl is on the floor in massive amounts of pain, and I'm standing there covered in blood from this guy's face. I feel funny, not sure what this feeling is. I feel cold in a spot on my stomach, sort of like if you spit on your stomach and a strong gust of wind comes and it feels extra cold, you know what I mean? Well, I looked down and realized I got stabbed. I had a 4.5-inch knife in my clear abdomen muscle. While I was headbutting this guy, he was able to sneak a knife he had right into my gut, without me realizing it. I quickly start to panic and call 911. I sit there until they come, go to the hospital, nearly dying. I recovered well, missing all vital organs, and when I woke up in the hospital I had police there and was told that the guy robbing my apartment was dead. My headbutts broke his skull and he internally bled out in his brain. My heart sank. Yes, the guy stabbed me, yes, the guy threatened my wife and dog, who is like my son, and yes, he came onto my property, but I did not want to end anyone. Well anyway, to sum up the story, when I awoke in the hospital and they told me this, my wife divorced me on the spot, saying she can't stay married to someone who ends someone else, regardless of the situation. What reason did you break up with your BF/GF for that they will never know about? I watched him cheat on me and he will never know. We lived in the same city and had been dating for about 10 months. The last couple of months his passive-aggressive manipulations had begun to come a bit more transparent, but I was young, and convinced I could fix everything. On a Friday when we had plans, he called to say a friend at work had been fired, and he was going to go out